Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the Samsung Galaxy Mega. So the Mega is a new line of Android smartphones from Samsung. Now the Mega refers to the large screen size. So this is the 6.3 inch model. There is a 5.8 inch model. 6.3 obviously is the more higher spec version, but the interesting thing about the Mega series is that right now they are not high spec phones and kind of priced in the mid-range. So although you get a very large screen, you actually get a fairly mid-range phone priced accordingly. So it's kind of an interesting product. Right now it's not sold in the US. I don't expect it to come to the US, but it is sold globally. For example, I have the French version here, French language version. This will be sold in the UK, for example. So you can pick this up if you're in Europe. And if you're in the US, you can pick this up, of course, from third-party sellers. And this will work on GSM carriers like AT&T and T-Mobile. Will work on HSPA Plus here, and will work on LTE in the global market. So let's go ahead and take a look to see what we get. Now in terms of specs, you're going to have to excuse my French here, but we have a 1.7 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon 400 processor and an Adreno 305 GPU. We also have 1.5 gigs of RAM, or 8 and 16 gig capacities internally. You can also expand that thanks to a micro SD card slot up to 64 gigs. You have an 8 megapixel camera with a 1.9 megapixel secondary camera, so pretty good cameras. NFC technology, a very large 3200 milliamp hour battery. It also supports GPS and GLONASS. We have a micro USB port for charging, which also supports MHL, so you can output HD video through your USB port thanks to a dongle, which you have to purchase separately. We have our model number here, which is the GTI 9205, and we have Android 4.2 running on here. So this is the latest version of Android, also supporting the latest version of TouchWiz UX, which is very similar to what you get on the Galaxy S4. So let's go ahead and unbox this thing. Just crack the seal. Lift the lid, and there is our Galaxy Mega GPS NFC 1.7 gigahertz processor, HD super clear LCD. This is actually a 720p display, and there we go. That's our Android branding lifted up. As you can see, this is the black version. You can get this in white, although it wasn't shipping at the time I purchased mine. Normally, I prefer white. So let's set this aside for just a moment. Looks exactly like a GS4, just blown up quite a bit. And let's take a look to see what we get inside this box. Let's flip this around here. So you can see we have our manuals in French. I wonder if there's an English version in here. I don't think so. Nope, just French. Now they've also included a 4 gig micro SD card, so right there. And they also give us an adapter for using this with our computer. So I'm not sure if all versions shipping will include this, but that's kind of a nice bonus. We have our European wall adapter here for charging our device. So white doesn't quite match the black foam, but that's okay. We also have our micro USB charging cable. We have our set of headphones. So these are the Samsung headphones, in-ear headphones with those gels that fit into your ear. Let's see if they've included any other. Yep, there they are. They're just kind of slotted in here. So these are the other gels you can put in your ear. Find the right fit. We also have that very large battery in here. Again, 3200 milliamp hours. Let me see if I can get this out. Got a little tab here. There you go. Definitely the largest battery I've seen. So let's go ahead and take a look at the phone so we can pop the battery in. All right, so let's get back to the phone itself. We're going to peel off some plastic, but first you can see we have some illustrations here demonstrating how to install the battery. So that's pretty obvious. Let's peel this off. You can see that sort of plastic. We still have that glossy plastic. Again, very much like the Galaxy S4. You can see it kind of has a weave pattern to it. Looks very sharp, especially in these bright lights. Let's go to the front here and peel off the front panel. Peels right off. That's a lot of glossy glass right there. Looks very sharp. So along the side, you see we have that chrome bezel. Again, very evocative of the GS4. This is not metal. This is still plastic, but it looks very sharp. We have our volume rocker on this side. We have our sleep wake power button on the right side. You can see it's still placed in a convenient spot for your thumb, so it's a pretty natural location. It's not all the way up here, for example. Same with the volume rocker. Down here, find that USB charging port as well as a microphone. Actually, you can see I have more plastic on here. We're gonna have to peel that off. You can see we have an IR blaster. We have another microphone, noise cancellation or other microphone. We have our headphone jack. And that's about it. So let's go ahead and start peeling off this plastic. So as you can see, just like the GS4, they like to wrap it in lots of little pieces of plastic around the bezel so it doesn't scratch in transit. All right, so I think that is the last piece of plastic. So let's go ahead and take a look at the front. So we have our home button, again, very familiar to any Samsung phone. You can see we have that weave pattern along the front carried over on the front panel. Up here you can see we have our earpiece as well as our ambient light sensor and proximity sensor as well as our camera. Now what you don't see here, what you get in the GS4 is an RGB sensor for adjusting the display. So kind of stripped down a little bit from the GS4. Let's go ahead and take off the back panel. You can see we also have our speaker down here, again, a lot like the GS4. We have our LED flash, 8 megapixel camera. They do not have a piece of plastic over the lens like they do with the GS4, so that's good. So let's go ahead and peel off this back panel. Again, you have a little thumb port here for popping off the panel. Comes right off. So you pretty much have a very large slot for the battery. Now something interesting here is that we actually have a combined micro SD and micro SIM slot. So they're stacked on top of each other, so that's kind of interesting. So you can see below here we have our SIM. Up here we have our SD card slot. Now, like the GS4, the battery itself contains the NFC technology, not the back panel. So if you look inside, you'll see there are no antennas here for NFC. So let's go ahead and install the battery. Just drop it in and put the back cover back on. So it snaps into place. Pretty familiar for any Samsung phone. And it fits on pretty snugly. All right, so let's boot this up for the first time. Just going to tap and hold the power button. You can feel a little vibration. Samsung Galaxy Mega GT i9 205. You can also see we have a LED notification light up here. Now during the setup process, Samsung kind of coaches you on some of the features available through TouchWiz. That includes S-Beam, so if you tap on S-Beam, you'll get a little illustration on how that works. Same with AirView. We're pretty familiar with AirView. Basically, you can hover your finger over your display and it will detect the presence and act accordingly. So certain apps can take advantage of that, and we'll demonstrate that in a bit. We have Smart Stay technology as well, so it's able to see your eyes and will act accordingly, so it won't turn off the screen, that sort of thing. We have Easy Mode, so you can enable Easy Mode if you want a simpler user experience. And we have Adapt Display, basically it adapts the display to the ambient lighting conditions. All right, so let's go to next. Now I can name my phone here, so it wants to do Michael Kuchelka Gala, so let's fix that and just call it the Galaxy Mega. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this giant display. Again, 6.3 inches, 720p resolution, good for 233 pixels per inch. Certainly not as pixel dense as something like the Galaxy S4, which is a 1080p display over a 5-inch display. So that gives us a pixel density well north of 400. So not the pixel sharpness of the Galaxy S4, but still pretty impressive. The thing that really jumps out to me is that although this is an LCD display, it has very rich contrast, very rich colors, so it still looks absolutely fantastic. So as you can see, we have that TouchWiz user experience, again, very similar to GS4. I really like that lock screen. I really would like to be there right now. So you just swipe up, unlock it. You can also swipe down from the lock screen to access your quick toggles up here. So you see all the familiar toggles you're familiar with from the GS4, such as Smart Stay, AirView, NFC, S-Beam, Wi-Fi hotspot, multi-windowing, screen mirroring, power saving mode, blocking mode. Blocking mode basically is a do not disturb feature. Mobile data, Bluetooth, screen rotation lock, sound, GPS, and Wi-Fi. What you don't see here is smart scrolling, which this phone does not have like the GS4. You also have your brightness controls and you have your ongoing notifications. So if we swipe to unlock, you can see we have a pretty familiar TouchWiz user interface. This is the default configuration. So you can see all the apps they've included on the home screens. So you can see also we have these widgets. We have our calendar widget. We have our Story Album, which is an app for organizing your photos on your device. You also have your widget here for your Samsung Music Player. You have your weather widget, your search widget. You have email, camera, gallery, Samsung App Store, and the Play Store, as well as the Internet Android browser, which is interesting here. So it's not, the default browser is not Google Chrome. It's the Android browser that Samsung put together. Messaging, contacts, phone. They do include Chrome, I believe. I don't know if this installed when I restored for my account, but Chrome is there in the app drawer. So again, you just go to the app drawer and you'll find even more apps. And you can also use this little scrolling gesture here to scroll between screens. You can do that also on the home screen. And you can manage it just by pinching out like this. So if you want to change your home screen, you just tap the home button at the top of each screen. And you can move them around by dragging it around, and you can add other home screens like that. Or you can tap and hold them and remove them. There you go. Works also the same with apps. So for example, I don't want to use this browser. So we can go up to remove. We can go to the app, drawer, get Chrome. Let's go to Chrome here and drop it down. There you go. Now because this is such a large screen, we now have rotation for landscape and portrait mode. So it's kind of similar to Samsung tablets. We haven't really seen this on their smartphones. Now there is a lot we can do from the lock screen thanks to Android 4.2, which now supports lock screen widgets. So for example, we can swipe across this clock face and get to one of our screens. Now, I've already added one widget here, and I can go and add another widget to another screen just by hitting this plus button. So here I can add Gmail. So I'll add Gmail to my lock screen, and it's asking me what I want to see in Gmail. So let me just go to my inbox. So now you can see it's loading that. So if I go to lock, unlock, swipe, I get Google Now, and now I get my Gmail. So I can quickly look through that without unlocking the phone. Now we have two options here for the right lock screen. So whatever's to the right of the home lock screen, you can get two options. You can either get the camera, or you can get this series of apps. So you can modify this by going to the edit button, and you can remove them just like that, or you can add them from your list of available apps. Now because this is Android 4.2, we have two ways of accessing the drop-down menu. So you can use the single swipe to access your notification panel along with your quick settings toggles, or you can use the two-finger swipe to get right to your quick settings toggles. And you can also jump between them with this little button in the top. Now if you're under your quick settings here, you can also edit them. It takes you to the notification panel settings. So here you can rearrange them. So for example, if you want Smart Stay up here, you can do that, and it bumps Wi-Fi back down here. If you want to put it back, there you go. Now, like all Samsung devices, we still have our off-screen menu controls. So we have our menu button, back button, as well as our home button. Now, these do have dual purposes. So for example, if we tap and hold the home button, we do get our recent apps. So here we can swipe them out of the way to close them, or we can tap on any one of them to launch them. We can also go to our manager here. So we can manage our active applications, so we can end them, download apps. We can manage our RAM, so we can clear some of that memory, and we have storage, so we can see how much storage we're taking up. Now you can also get to Google Now from here. So if you hit the G, that'll take you to Google Now. So we can use Google Now. What's the weather like tomorrow in Rochester Hills, Michigan?
Tomorrow's forecast for Rochester Hills is 75 degrees with a chance of storm.
Now we can also double tap the home button to get to S Voice. What's the weather like tomorrow in Rochester Hills, Michigan?
You'll hear some thunder on Saturday.
Now you can activate multi-windowing mode by tapping and holding the back button here. So this is the multi-window tray, and basically you can scroll through the available apps for this mode. You can also edit what appears here. So if you don't want, for example, Hangouts to be here, you can just drag it out of there, or you can drag it back in. Now you can also move this from left to right sides if you want it on the left side. There you go. You can also tap it to hide it. It automatically hides itself after a period of inactivity. You can also use this in landscape mode. So if it goes to landscape, you can see it's either on the left or right hand side, and again you can move it around from the left to right side if you wish. Now multi-windowing allows you to run two apps at the same time. So for example, we can launch Chrome and then we can grab another app. So for example, let's see if we can grab the YouTube app, drop that here. So there you go. You have the full The Verge website up here, which I can scroll through, and then you have YouTube down here. And you can see it's also coaching me on how to use YouTube here. So for example, I can go ahead and launch one of my uploads and watch it in the background. So let's go ahead and launch this one.
Portable and powerful.
So there we go. We can scroll it up or down.
I can take it with me wherever I go.
And you can also switch between the screens. So you can go to bottom or top screen. You can also go to full screen mode, or you can close this window.
I like to read on my
So for
way to
example,
work.
full screen, there you go. And then we have to go back to drop Chrome back in here if you want
any
it.
book I want. It's like an entire library at my...
Now because this is such a large phone, Samsung has added something called one-handed operation, which we've seen with the Note 2. So if you go to settings, go to my device, you'll see one-handed operation. You can toggle all of these on or off. They're off by default. So if you go to learn about one-handed operation, it basically illustrates it for you. So it kind of aligns the keyboard to the left hand or right hand side of the screen so you can use your thumb. Let me just demonstrate that for you. So I've enabled this. If I go to my phone dialer, you can see right now it's orientated toward the left. If I want to use it on the right, to do that, and you can see it's within thumb typing distance. So that's very useful with a phone so large. Now, one of the more interesting apps here is S Translator, which also launched with the Galaxy S4. Basically, you can speak in one language and it will output in another. So this is great if you're traveling. You get lots of languages. So for example, I have German selected, but you can select Brazilian, English UK, English the US, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, simplified Chinese, and Spanish. So basically, I can speak in English. How old are you? It'll translate it in text, so wie alt sind Sie, and we can have it speak it.
Wie alt sind Sie?
So you can use this to interact with other people, so it's kind of a nice sort of live translator. This also means that another person could speak in their language, and it will translate it into English. So for example, Ich habe ein Kopfweh. So there you go, that translates into I have a headache in English. Another big app here is Watch On, which uses the IR Blaster on the phone to control your AV equipment. Now, it's very easy to set up. Basically, you tell the device your location, it'll automatically find your channel listing based on your service, and it populates it with the currently broadcasting shows. So that means you can basically tap on any one of these to launch the show. So it makes it very easy to discover your content without having to go to the menu on your TV to figure out what's going on. This is definitely a much nicer user interface. So you can also set this up to control your AV equipment, your TV, your AV receiver, your DVR, that sort of thing. So for example, if I want to tap on any one of these shows like Law & Order, if I click Watch Now, it'll change the channel for me. You can see it's flashing the IR code right now. And then I can go to my remote control and control it. So I can control the volume, the channel, the source. I can mute it. I can also go to my TV and DVR controls for navigation, as well as play, pause, reverse, that sort of thing. So works pretty well. I definitely like having this on my phone. Kind of beats having the remote control somewhere else in the room, so you'll at least always have it with you. Now, something Watch On supports, which I can't demonstrate, is that it can actually broadcast video from your smart TV, specifically your Samsung Smart TV, to your phone. So you can basically continue watching your show from your TV on your smartphone. So if you walk away to the kitchen, you always have your show with you on your phone, and you can resume it back on your Samsung Smart TV when you get back to your entertainment room. Now, a really neat app here is Group Play. So Group Play basically works across Samsung devices. So if you have Group Play installed on that device, you can share music, files, photos, etc. between devices pretty easily. But first you have to create a group. And so you have to have one host device to do this. So we're going to go create a group, set a password. So it's going to turn this on. So now I have several options here. I can share music, share pictures, share documents, or play games. What I'm going to do is show you how sharing music works, which is kind of neat. So we're going to go to share music. Now I'm going to share my one music file here, which is included with the device. We're going to click done. So now I have my host device playing the music. So now I have my Galaxy S4 here, which also has the Group Play app installed. It also has NFC technology. So all I have to do in order to get the music to play here and here is touch the phones together. So there we go, automatically launches the Group Play app. We're gonna select Join Group. Enter in my password. Go to Share Music. So there you go. So there you go, the devices are in sync and playing the track together. So basically, you have your right speaker and your left speaker, so you get this kind of dynamic surround sound audio. Sounds pretty good, and of course you can add several devices to get multiple speakers. In theory, you can generate a 5.1 surround sound system. So it works pretty good. So again, this device controls it. You go up here to toggle between your controls, pause it, play it. You can also control volume right from the host device. It controls the volume across all devices. In fact, you have specific control over the volume of each device from that control as well. Now, AirView is also a feature we're familiar with from the Galaxy S4. It only works with some apps. So, for example, the email app, basically if you hover your thumb over one of these messages here, you can see you get a little preview. This also works in the Gallery app and the Calendar app. So let me go to the Calendar and show you. So in the Calendar, all you have to do is hold your finger over the event and it gives you some more detailed information. Now, this also works in the Gallery app. So just hold your finger over any one of these albums and it gives you a little preview of what's in them. Now, if you're in the album view, just hold your finger over any one of these images and you get a larger one. You can also tap on it to enlarge it. Now, as we've seen before, the video player also has a pop-out video player. So, for example, if we play this video clip I recorded quite a while ago now, it has to load it. But basically what I can do is pop it out into a separate window. You can see it floats over whatever I'm doing. So right now I'm on the home screen, it's still loading the video, but I can move it around. I can also resize it. I can pause it or I can close it. So this only works with the embedded video player, not third-party video players. Now, safety assistance is interesting. I actually haven't seen this before. It doesn't appear on my GS4 or other Samsung devices. So I'm not sure if this is available in other markets or if it's a version of the software that's yet to be pushed out. But safety assistance basically allows you to set up an emergency alert system automatically. All you have to do is hold the volume up button for 3 seconds and it will set this into motion. So what will happen is it will take photos with both cameras. It will record your location and send an emergency message to your contacts. So you can also designate your emergency contacts just by adding them. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to reveal them, but that gives you an idea. So you can add as many contacts as you want. So it's kind of like a way of contacting people in a difficult situation in which you can't pick up your phone and call anybody. Of course, it's maybe not as useful if it's in your pocket, at least the photos aren't, but you can also toggle that feature on and off. So it's kind of interesting. Now, the camera app is something we're pretty familiar with as well from the GS4. It's actually very similar software. You also have that mode function here, which allows you to select between different modes. One of them is beauty face. So it enhances the facial features automatically when taking portrait pictures. Best photo will take a series of pictures and then select the best one to save. Continuous shot, best face, sound and shot. Basically, you take a single photograph and you can record sound with it. Rich tone HDR, panorama mode, sports mode for quick photography, night mode for higher exposure, automatic mode, etc., etc. So you can quickly cycle between them. You can also use the grid view here instead. I'm not going to demonstrate all of those. There's a lot of them. You can also record video, and you can also snap a photo while you're taking your video. So you can see it's silent while it's doing that. You can pause it and resume recording. Now we also have voice control, so we can do things like shoot, cheese, record video. Now we also have our filters down here. We have a little arrow. If you look here, you'll see a little arrow here indicating our filters. You can activate them and they appear live on screen. Now if you look at our benchmark scores, you can see the GS4 really pulls ahead of the Mega, and that makes sense. We're dealing with a quad core clocked at 1.9 gigahertz versus a dual core clocked at 1.7. This also has 2 gigs of RAM. This has a next generation Snapdragon 600 processor. We also have an octa-core out there as well. So performance is definitely much better on the GS4. You also have to keep in mind that this display is much higher resolution. So 1080p versus 720p. So you have a lot more pixels here to drive than on the Mega. So performance isn't the best on the Mega, but of course you're paying less for it. Now, of course, the big story here is screen size, which means you can get a lot on this screen at once. So, for example, we've loaded the full The Verge website. And although it's not a high pixel density screen like the GS4, you can still read very tiny text without zooming in. So, for example, if we zoom all the way down to these thumbnail articles, you can see the text is actually pretty sharp. It's pretty legible if we focus in here. So you can see it's not as sharp as it could be, but it's surprising considering this is only 233 ppi. Now just to do a size comparison here, we have the 8-inch Note, we have our Mega 6.3-inch, our 5.5-inch Note 2, our Galaxy S4, and then our relatively tiny iPhone 5. So you can see there's a huge difference in size between these devices. So size is the big story here. So in conclusion, the Mega is kind of a in-between device. It seems like they need to go a step further to bring it up to more exciting levels. So it'd be nice to have a phone this size, but have really current generation specs. But of course, you'd get much higher price tags at that point. So it's kind of nice that they're exploring this sort of category, and maybe eventually we'll see even higher end versions of phones this large. Now, in terms of size, it is a very large phone. Most people aren't going to like this. I have very large hands, so it works for me, but it's still a two-handed device. It's not something I'm going to use comfortably with one hand at all times. You have to shuffle around, that sort of thing. But it's actually very thin and lightweight, so that really makes this size more manageable. That's a big that really impacts the overall feel of this phone, or the overall ergonomics of this phone. Like, for example, the Note to me feels like a heavy brick in my pocket. It's a little too thick. It just doesn't feel like a very comfortable phone to use. With this phone design, you have a nice angled edge, which gives you a more grippable surface area. All the buttons are in the right location. They're very ergonomically placed. And overall, it just feels like a very well-balanced phone. They've done a good job handling this size. The display, again, LCD. I prefer LCD technology because it's brighter, it's more color accurate, it's particularly useful for taking photographs. You want a more accurate view of your photographs. OLED tends to exaggerate colors. It tends to look very good with user interface elements, you know, with vivid solid colors, but I really prefer more accurate color reproduction than kind of the oversaturated look of the OLED displays. It's also more brighter. Whites are a lot brighter. They're more white instead of blue or washed out. So it looks pretty good to me. I really like this display. Certainly not the density of those displays, but overall very sharp, and can't complain at 233 ppi. That's pretty good. Now, performance is actually pretty good, and I think part of that is the fact that this device is using or pushing less pixels than the GS4. So the GS4 has a lot more pixels to push with that 1080p display than the 720p display here. So it actually performs pretty well. It doesn't feel as sluggish as maybe the GS4 does from time to time. So despite having these really impressive specs in the phone versus the lower end specs in the Mega, this actually does a pretty good job keeping up with the new and pretty feature-packed TouchWiz. The cameras are also pretty good. So that 8 megapixel camera, maybe not a 13 megapixel sensor, but it does a pretty good job. Again, very similar to the GS3 we're familiar with, and also the rear facing camera also is pretty good. It's pretty much the same camera you get with the GS4. Alrighty guys, I really want to know what you think about the Galaxy Mega. Is this phone just too big, or is this something you actually want to see? So let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you again in the next one.